I never imagined she'd get her comeuppance for the betrayal all by herself, with me barely lifting a finger. Or so I thought. The shop was quiet, the kind of quiet you only get after midnight, when the world outside forgets to breathe. Just the ticking of clocks, mine and the ones on the walls. That night, I was working on a 1940s Omega chronograph. A real beauty with a split-seconds function and a cracked crystal. The kind of work that demands still hands and complete focus. But I wasn't steady. Not that night. Clara's phone lit up on the workbench next to the polishing cloths. I shouldn't have seen it, wasn't trying to. But I did. A message blinked across the screen. Simple, almost meaningless on the surface. Same place tomorrow. No name. Just that. The screen faded to black again like it knew it had said too much. It could have been anything. A client. A friend. An appointment. That's what I told myself. But the tone, it was casual. Familiar. And not the way Clara's clients usually messaged her. They were always about time slots and pricing. Sometimes a photo of an heirloom watch they hoped we could bring back from the dead. Never cryptic lines like that. I sat back in my chair, the loop still on my eye, but I wasn't looking at anything through it anymore. My hands rested on the velvet mat, fingers curled just slightly. I wasn't angry. Not yet. But I felt it. A shift. Like a mainspring wound, one turned too tight. She'd been off lately. Hard to say exactly when it started, but now, looking back, I saw it in flashes. The way she kept her phone face down during dinner. How she started leaving early in the mornings, saying she had to drop by a supplier before opening up shop. Our shop, Tom Atelier, the dream we built from nothing. A dream she was now always too tired to talk about. And when we sat across from each other in the evenings, the silence between us felt heavier than it used to. Last Thursday, she came home late smelling faintly of cigar smoke. Clara doesn't smoke. Never has. Neither do her clients, far as I know. At least, not the one she claims to be meeting. I didn't say anything at the time. Just logged it like I would a hairline fracture in a balance wheel. You don't yank the whole mechanism apart just because of a single crack. But you make note of it. That's the thing about being a watchmaker. You live in the realm of precision. Microns matter. One part out of sync throws everything off. And lately, Clara's rhythm, her presence, was out of time with everything else in our lives. It wasn't one big betrayal. It was 1,000 small misalignments like gears grinding just out of sync. It all came to a head 3 nights ago. I was heading home from the shop later than usual. I'd stayed behind to repair a regulator spring. The streets were damp, washed in a soft mist, headlights cutting tunnels through the dark. As I turned onto Haven Street, just before the turnoff to our place, I saw Clara's car, parked under a flickering lamppost a few blocks from home. At first, I thought she might have broken down, but then I saw the silhouette of another person in the driver's seat. A man. They weren't doing anything inappropriate, just sitting. But the way she was laughing, it hit something in me I hadn't felt in years. Not jealousy, not quite. It was distance. I hadn't seen her laugh like that in months. Years, maybe. The way she used to laugh when we'd land a big order or pull an all-nighter restoring a tourbillon together. I pulled off into a side street, turned my lights off. Just watched. They sat there maybe 10 minutes. No touching, no kiss, but the intimacy was loud. Then she drove off, not toward home, but in the opposite direction. 20 minutes later, she came through the door, claimed she'd been at the suppliers. Traffic. I nodded, said nothing. That night, I couldn't sleep. Lay there next to her, watching the ceiling like it might spell out the answer. Every excuse she gave was tidy, practiced, but the details didn't line up. Her blouse didn't match the supplier's story, too dressy. And there was that cigar scent again, faint but real. You notice these things when you spend your life inside fine machinery. I knew something was off. The next day, I met up with Tom at Weaver's Tavern. We've been friends since before Clara. Served together for a while back when I was in the Navy. He always liked to say I traded one kind of gear for another, radar systems to wristwatches. We sat at the corner booth, 2 beers in, when I finally said it. She's different lately, I murmured, eyes on the phone. More guarded. Distant. Tom looked up slowly. Different how? I hesitated, then told him about the text. The car. The laugh. He didn't rush to answer. Just sipped his beer, watching me like he was trying to decide how much truth I could handle. Finally, he said, "That doesn't sound like her. But people change, Dan. Sometimes without meaning to. You sure you're not just reading into it?" "Maybe," I said. "But when something's off in a movement, you feel it. You hear it, even before you open the case." Tom nodded, then opened the damn case. We sat there a while longer. Neither of us said it out loud, but I think we both knew whatever this was, it wasn't nothing. That night, back in the shop, I couldn't focus. The chronograph sat untouched. I remembered Clara's phone, which she now kept in a zippered purse like a safe. So here I am, sitting in the stillness, tools in hand, heart pounding slow and steady. I don't want to accuse her without knowing. I don't want to tear something down that maybe just needs mending. But I won't look away anymore either. Tomorrow, I'll follow her. Not because I want to catch her in something, but because a man deserves to know if the life he's building is built on something solid, or if it's just ticking toward a slow, quiet collapse. And if it is broken, then I'll fix what I can, or walk away clean. Either way, the truth starts tomorrow. It started with a soft rain, nothing dramatic. Just enough to smear the windshield and hush the world outside. I sat in my truck 2 cars back, the wipers sighing every few seconds like they were tired of waiting too. Clara's taillights blinked red at the corner of Walnut and 3rd, then rolled forward into the night. She hadn't said where she was going, just that she had to meet a potential vendor. Short notice. Not unusual for the business, but this time I didn't ask questions. I wanted answers instead. The streets downtown gleamed with reflections. Neon signs buzzed in puddles. I kept my distance as she turned onto a narrow alley behind a bar I didn't recognize. Low signage, red-lit windows. Not the kind of place we ever went together. I parked a block down, pulled my cap low, and walked. There she was. Through the rain-slicked glass of the bar-side window, I saw her. Sitting in a booth, relaxed, smiling, like she used to be when we still dreamed that our shop could become what it is now. Across from her sat a man I hadn't expected. Paul, our accountant, or more than that. He was there when we signed our first commercial lease. He handled the books when Clara and I were working 16-hour days just to break even. I taught him how to oil a movement once, on a quiet afternoon when he came by to understand the business better. He wasn't just some outsider. He was someone I trusted. They leaned in close, heads nearly touching as she showed him something on her phone. Then she laughed, open, warm, familiar. A sound I hadn't heard from her in years. My stomach tightened like a mainspring coiled too tight. It wasn't just the laugh. It was the way she looked at him. Relaxed, like she'd been carrying something all day and could finally set it down. I stepped back into the shadow of the alley wall. My hands were cold, though the air wasn't. I told myself to breathe, to think, but my pulse was pounding in my ears like a hammer against brass. They stayed another 20 minutes. When they left, she kissed him on the cheek. Not the awkward kind you give a friend. It lingered. I didn't follow them after that. Didn't need to. I drove straight to the shop. It was dark, save for the small security light near the back workbench. I unlocked the door, stepped inside, and shut it quietly behind me. The air smelled of machine oil and cedar shavings. Familiar. Safe. For a moment, I stood there and let the silence hold me. Then I turned on the desk lamp. Clara's ledger sat on her side of the office. We still kept paper backups, an old habit from our early days. She always said she trusted ink more than any cloud. I opened the drawer where she kept client invoices and supplier records. The first folder I pulled out had Paul's name on it. At first glance, it looked routine. Monthly reports, expense breakdowns. But the totals were off. Inflated labor charges, duplicate vendor payments, tiny discrepancies, easy to miss unless you knew where to look. I knew. I flipped further. There, tucked between reports, was a receipt. A jewelry purchase, gold cufflinks from Bouchard's. Dated 2 weeks ago. I never wear cufflinks. Clara doesn't wear men's jewelry. And Paul? He's always had a taste for showy pieces. Beside it was a note, handwritten in her delicate script. You deserve more than this secret. Soon, it's just us. I sat down hard in the desk chair, the paper still in my hands. The rain tapped gently against the windows. A clock on the wall chimed once. I didn't cry, not right away. Just stare at that line. Soon, it's just us. She was leaving. Not just me. She was leaving the business. Our legacy. And with him, Paul. The man I'd trusted with our numbers, our history. The man I'd once toasted with cheap bourbon on the day we broke even for the first time. I remember Clara clinking her glass with his, sing, "To the dream, may it keep ticking." I wonder now how long that toast had been hollow. My throat tightened. The chair creaked as I leaned forward, elbows on my knees, the note still trembling in my hand. I don't know how long I sat like that. Eventually, the grief came, not loud, not explosive, just real. I sank to the floor, head in hands, and let the tears come slow and steady. Not just for what I'd lost, but for how long I'd been blind. She hadn't just betrayed me. She'd sold out everything we built. The betrayal wasn't in the kiss or the laughter. It was in the way she handed over the books, the trust, the foundation. Paul didn't just steal my wife. He helped dismantle the clockwork I spent half my life building. When I finally stood, my hands were steadier than I expected. I took photos of the receipt and the note, scanned the files onto a USB from our backup drive. I wasn't sure yet what I'd do with them, but I needed the truth preserved. I walked to the workbench where my latest restoration waited, a battered Hamilton Marine chronometer. I've been working on it for weeks. Something about the Old Navy design had called to me. Precision, reliability, a sense of order in chaos. I looked at it now, the glass fogged from the shift in temperature. One word repeated in my head. Why? Why throw away 20 years? Why lie? Why choose him? I didn't have answers. Not yet. But I knew one thing for certain. It's true. She's having an affair. And now, she'll have to face me. She'd been off lately. Hard to say exactly when it started, but now, looking back, I saw it in flashes. The way she kept her phone face down during dinner. How she started leaving ear. I was already sitting at the kitchen table when she came through the front door. The lights were low, just the warm amber from the hood lamp over the stove. Outside, wind moved through the trees like distant breath. Inside, the only sound was the soft ticking of the old brass clock on the wall, one I'd restored back when Clara and I still believed in forever. She stepped in, keys jingling in her hand. Her heels clicked once, then stopped when she saw me. "Dan?" she asked, surprised but trying to sound casual. "You're still up?" I didn't answer right away, just studied her in the quiet. The way she unbuttoned her coat, slow. Her eyes didn't quite meet mine. "I thought you were the supplier," I said finally. Her pause was just a second too long. "I was," she said. "Ran late." I nodded slowly. Was Paul there? Clara froze. Her hand dropped her keys into the ceramic bowl on the counter, the clatter sharp in the silence. Her mouth opened slightly, as if to speak, but no words came out. I reached into the folder on the table and pulled out the note. Just one line of handwriting. "Soon, it's just us." I didn't push it across to her, just held it between my fingers like it was a fuse waiting to burn. "I found this," I said, "in the office, along with a receipt. Jewelry, cufflinks, Bouchard's." Her eyes flicked to the note, then to me. Color drained from her face. Still, she tried. "I don't, Dan. You're misunderstanding." "No," I said, cutting her off gently. "Don't do that. Not now." She sank into the chair across from me, like the weight of it had finally hit her. "How long?" I asked. Silence. "How long, Clara?" Her voice came out small. "A few months." My jaw tensed, but I didn't raise my voice. I couldn't. If I did, I wasn't sure I'd stop. And him? Paul? Of all people. I let out a breath. You knew what he meant to the business. To me. Her eyes welled up, but no tears fell yet. I didn't mean for it to happen like this. I leaned back, arms crossed. How did you mean for it to happen? She shook her head. You were always working, always in the shop. You stopped seeing me. I stopped seeing you, I said, and the words cracked sharper than I intended. I leaned forward, my voice tightening. I gave my life to this, to us. Every night at that workbench, every client I met, every piece I restored, I was building something for both of us. She wiped at her eyes. I was lonely. I stared at her. Then, as if fate wanted it to say, her phone buzzed. Loud in the still room. A name flashed across the screen. Paul. I didn't touch the phone, just looked at her. She hesitated, then silenced it. Answer it, I said quietly. She shook her head. I can't. No, because now it's real. The silence between us stretched out, unbearable. I stood up, walked to the window. The streetlights bled orange into the room, casting long shadows across the tile. I saw a reflection in the glass, her sitting, head bowed, me standing, arms stiff at my sides. I thought about our first workshop, how we stayed up all night finishing that custom gold dial for the couple in Oregon, how she fell asleep on the workbench, grease on her cheek, how we laughed when we shipped it off the next morning, exhausted but proud. I thought this meant something to you, I said, not turning around. Time Atelier wasn't just a business. It was our story, our legacy. Her voice cracked. It did mean something, Dan. You broke our vow, Clara, I said, finally turning to face her. But not my worth. She rose to her feet, came toward me. Her hand reached for mine, but I stepped back. I never meant to hurt you, she whispered. Intent doesn't change the outcome. Her tears came freely now. She tried to explain, to justify, to soften. But there was no softening this. No elegant way to dismantle what she demolished. Does Tom know? She asked suddenly, as if to measure the fallout. No, I said. Not yet. That's your gift. I haven't told anyone. Because whatever else this was, it happened in the house we built. And I'm trying to protect what little dignity we have left. A beat of silence. Then, but you'll tell him, won't you? I shrugged slightly. I don't know. That's the part I'm wrestling with. She looked at me like she wanted to speak, but the words just hovered in the space between us. That was the moment I realized the moral dilemma I'd been avoiding. Do I expose her? Ruin her in front of the few people who still believe in us? Or do I walk away silently, carrying the weight alone so the story doesn't end with blood in the water? Neither choice felt clean. Neither felt just. But justice isn't always loud. The phone buzzed again. Same name. I walked over, picked it up, and stared at it for a long moment. Then I answered. Silence on the other end. I didn't say a word, just held the line open for a few long seconds. Then I hung up. Clara watched, eyes wide. I need space, I said. You can stay here tonight. But tomorrow, one of us goes. She nodded slowly, defeated. I turned and walked toward the back of the house, each step heavier than the last. I paused by the doorway, hand on the frame. Nothing will be the same after this. I don't know what justice looks like yet, but I know I'm standing on the edge of it. And in the still ticking of the house behind me, I could hear something breaking. I thought the mechanism of our life had stopped, but the real blow was still ahead. LY in the mornings, saying she had to drop by a supplier before opening up shop. Our shop, the dream we built from nothing. A dream she was now always too tired to talk about. And when we sat across from each other in the evenings, the silence between us felt heavier than it used to. I spent the next 3 nights on the old leather couch in the workshop. It wasn't comfortable. Springs creaked every time I shifted, and the chill from the cement floor crept in before dawn. But it was quiet, honest. I needed that more than comfort. Upstairs, the house felt like a museum of a life no longer mine. Photos of smiling anniversaries, the ceramic dish by the door still holding both our keys, her robe draped neatly on the back of the bathroom door like nothing had changed. But everything had. On the second night, I lit a cigarette. I haven't smoked in years, quit after my father passed, but I found one tucked behind a drawer in my tool chest, probably Tom's from some late night long ago. I lit it, inhaled, and immediately coughed like hell. but I didn't put it out. I stood there in the flicker of the desk lamp, thinking about the way Clara used to lean over my shoulder while I worked, humming to herself. How she'd say, "This is where you're most alive." Now I felt like a man standing in the shell of what used to be sacred. The morning of the fourth day, I called Tom. We met on the back patio of his place, mugs of black coffee steaming between us. The backyard smelled of cut grass and damp wood. He sat across from me, still in his old Navy hoodie, legs stretched out like this was just another morning. "I confronted her," I said quietly. He didn't blink, just nodded and waited. Told her I knew, showed her the note, the receipts. She didn't deny it. Tom let out a slow breath through his nose. And she cried, said she felt invisible, that I chose the work over her. I paused. Maybe she's not wrong. I had to get lost in all this. "That's not a license to cheat, Dan." "I know," I said, "but I'm trying to figure out what's salvageable and what's just ashes." He looked out across his yard, the wind catching the edge of a tarp over his smoker. "Look," he said, "marriage ain't a perfect thing, but neither is staying where you're disrespected. Think about what you can live with, fixing this or moving on." I stared into my coffee. It had gone cold. Later that afternoon, I returned home to find Clara sitting at the kitchen table. She stood when I walked in. Her eyes were tired, rimmed red. "We need to talk," she said. "I know." She came closer but stopped short of touching me. "I made a mistake. A huge one. But we've spent 20 years together, Dan. Doesn't that count for something?" "It does," I said. "It counts for everything. That's why it hurts like hell. I don't want to lose what we've built." I looked at her, really looked, past the remorse, past the tremble in her voice. I saw fear, not just of losing me, but of losing the life we carved from nothing. The reputation, the business, the story we sold our youth to create. "You already did," I said. Her mouth opened, then closed. "I want to make it right," she said, voice cracking. "We could go to counseling." "We can. I'm not interested in salvaging something you were willing to burn." That shut her down. She leaned against the counter, arms folded tight across her chest. "So what now? We divide what's ours. You can keep the house. I'll keep the shop." Her expression sharpened. "The shop? Dan, I'm still part of Time Atelier." "No," I said quietly. "Not anymore. Don't do this. I have to do this. That shop is my work, my sweat, my name. I built it with my hands. You gave part of it away when you gave our books to Paul. You invited him into something sacred. That business was built by both of us. It was, I agreed, but one of us defended it, and the other used it to build an escape route." She turned away then, arms tightening. "So that's it? You're just going to throw everything away?" "I'm not throwing anything," I said. "I'm letting go. There's a difference." The next morning, I met with a lawyer. Sat across a polished desk while he explained the process, division of assets, the steps for filing, timelines. I nodded through it all, mine already elsewhere. I handed him the folder, financial records, the note, the receipt. He didn't ask why. Didn't need to. When I left the office, I felt it. Not relief, not exactly, but something close to stillness. That evening, Clara and I had one final conversation. In the living room. Neutral ground. I filed, I told her. She nodded, eyes downcast. "I wish it had ended differently." I added, "Do you hate me?" "No," I said, "but I can't trust you, and I can't live without trust." She reached up, maybe instinctively, to touch the ring still on my hand. I pulled it off and set it gently on the table between us. "I wish you well," I said, "but I'm done." I walked out before she could answer. Later that night, I sat at my workbench alone. The Hamilton chronometer I'd been fixing waited patiently, the escapement open like a wound. I picked up my loop, breathed once, and began to rebuild. I was going to get my life back, but someone wanted to take it away again. The quiet hit hardest in the mornings. I'd always been an early riser, old Navy habit. Clara used to groan from under the covers when I'd grind the coffee or clink too loud in the drawers. Now I woke to stillness. No footsteps upstairs. No creak of the bed. Just the hum of the refrigerator and the slow warming of the morning sun through unfamiliar curtains. The house wasn't mine anymore. She'd kept it, just like we agreed. I moved into a small loft above the shop. Sparse but efficient, kitchenette, single chair, a cot. The walls were blank. I didn't bring many things with me, just what mattered. My father's watch, the Navy photo from the USS Jackson, a box of old journals. In the workshop below, my real sanctuary. The divorce moved faster than I expected. Paper signed, names unbound. A 20-year chapter closed with the scratch of a pen. The first few nights alone, I cooked pasta and forgot to salt the water. Ate standing over the sink. Didn't bother with plates. One night, I opened a drawer and found a photo Clara had left behind. Us at the cabin in Vermont, back when we still laughed without effort. I sat on the edge of the cot and just stared, then cried. Quietly, not like a storm, more like a leak that wouldn't stop. But I didn't drown in it. I started running in the mornings. Nothing fancy, just 2 miles around the block, past the bakery, past Tom's place. At first, my legs protested. My lungs burned. But by week 3, I could feel the rhythm returning, like my body was remembering how to carry me forward. Tom came by often. He helped me haul out some old furniture from the shop's back room, where I decided to set up something new. My father's 1969 Dodge Charger, still half assembled from the restoration project we'd shelved a decade ago. Clara always called it that stubborn ghost. She never liked the noise. Now it was mine again. That car became a kind of therapy. Every bolt tightened, every fender polished. It felt like stitching myself back together. There was something poetic about rebuilding something that had been abandoned, neglected, something worth saving. One Saturday afternoon, I was under the hood, sleeves rolled up, grease on my palms, when I heard the shop door open. Footsteps. Heavy. I wiped my hands and stepped out front. It was Paul. He stood there in a tailored blazer, sunglasses hanging from his shirt like he'd walked off the cover of a midlife crisis catalog. "Dan," he said with a half-smirk, "didn't think you'd be around." I said nothing, just waited. "I can't talk about the books," he continued. "Clara mentioned there's some overlap. Items tied to both of you. Thought we should sort it out." I crossed my arms. "You're not part of this company anymore." Technically, I was never an official partner. "No," I said, "just a parasite." His smirk dropped. "I'm not here to fight," he said. "I'm here for what's fair." "What's fair," I said slowly, "is that you walk out that door and don't come back. You took my wife. You don't get my work too. You can't stop me from—" I took a step closer. Not threatening, just steady. "Try me." He looked at me, maybe expecting the man from 6 months ago, the one too focused on balance wheels to notice his life was tilting. But that man was gone. He left. No more words, just a slam of the door. I stood there for a long moment, then went back to the Charger. Turned the key. The engine coughed, then roared to life. You took my trust, I thought, but not my strength. That night, I drove out past the river, windows down. The wind was cold, but clean. I stopped at a diner on the edge of town, the kind with cracked leather booths and a jukebox in the corner. Ordered coffee, black. The waitress called me Han, and for the first time in a long while, I laughed. A real laugh. A week later, Clara called. I didn't pick up. I listened to the voicemail once, then deleted it. She said she missed the idea of us. Funny thing about ideas, they don't carry grease under their nails. They don't pull you through grief. They just sit there, pretty and empty. Healing wasn't a straight line. There were nights I'd walk past a shop window and swear I saw her reflection. Mornings when I'd reach for 2 coffee mugs before remembering. But there were also days, more and more of them, when I didn't think of her at all. One afternoon, I stood in the workshop and realized the light had changed. It spilled through the windows brighter, cleaner. I glanced down at my hands, steady, callous, sure. That evening, I boxed up the last of our shared photos. I didn't burn them, didn't tear them, just stored them in the back cabinet. Memories, not monuments. The Charger was almost finished. I called Tom, told him to bring a bottle of something good. He did. We stood outside, the engine idling, the sky bruising to dusk. "You're looking better," he said. I am better. He clinked his bottle against mine. To second chances. No, I said. To earn chances. That night, I slept without waking once. I thought I had left the past behind, but one chance meeting made me see what she had lost. Can I finally let go of everything? It had been a year and some change since I last saw Clara. Long enough for the sharp edges of betrayal to dull, but not so long that I'd forgotten the shape of the wound. You don't forget something like that. You just grow around it, like the way tree bark warps around old wire left in the trunk. It becomes part of the story, but it doesn't stop the tree from reaching higher. It was a Thursday in early spring, one of those days when the air feels clean again, like winter's grip has finally loosened. I'd stopped by McAllister's Hardware to pick up brass screws for a display case I was building. My small shop had done well, better than I expected, honestly. The new website had taken off, and I'd hired a young apprentice, Marco, to help with custom orders. Business was steady. Life was peaceful. I turned the corner near the checkout, and there she was. Clara. She was holding a single paintbrush and staring blankly at a row of finishes. She looked thinner, like someone whose life had been shrinking by degrees. Her hair was up, but not like she used to wear it. No earrings, no spark, just tired eyes and a frown that had etched itself into permanence. She saw me. For a second, we both stood there like two strangers who shared a dream once. Then she smiled, small and uncertain. Dan. I gave a polite nod. Clara, I wasn't expecting to see you here, she said, tucking the brush in her basket. Needed screws, I said simply. You painting something? Trying to refinish a chair. Keeps wobbling. I glanced down at the brush. Need the right anchor before anything holds steady. She offered a sad smile at that. Yeah, I guess I learned that too late. Silence stretched between us, but it didn't feel heavy anymore. Just empty. I heard about the shop, she said. Your website looks incredible. You really made something. Thank you. You always could. If you were left to work, she said. Then a pause. I'm sorry, Dan. You didn't deserve what I did. Not any of it. I nodded slowly. No, I didn't. She looked down at her shoes. He left me. Paul. About 6 months after the divorce finalized. Said the books were a mess, and he couldn't clean up my life and his. He took the rest of his savings, too. I never saw it coming. I stayed quiet. Clara swallowed. I've been alone, trying to rebuild, but it's different now. People remember. Clients stopped calling. Vendors backed out. Even my name doesn't hold much weight anymore. I thought of Time Atelier, that the dream we'd built together, the legacy she'd gambled on a man who never cared about craftsmanship, only shortcuts. She met my eyes again. I've lost a lot. There was no bitterness in her voice. No act. Just truth. And for the first time, I didn't feel anger. I felt sad. Not for what could have been. That part was over. But for her, yes. For the woman who once sat beside me, sanding a walnut case at midnight, laughing over a bottle of wine. I hope you find peace, I said. She blinked, a tear starting in one eye. Do you ever think about what we were? Sometimes, I admitted, but mostly I think about what I am now. I left her there, standing in that aisle, a basket in one hand, an apology she couldn't take back in the other. Later that week, Tom and I were at the Riverbank grilling lunch. Marco had just finished assembling his first solo build, and we were celebrating. The kid had potential. He reminded me of myself, before the losses, before the wait. Eager, careful, full of ideas, and just enough stubbornness to survive the trade. You see her? Tom asked, flipping a steak. I nodded. Ran into her at the hardware store. Everything all right? She's paying her dues, I said. The way life eventually makes you. He nodded and handed me a beer. You all right? I looked out across the river. The sunlight hit the water just right, breaking it into 1,000 pieces, then stitching it back together. Yeah, I said. I'm all right. That evening, I stood in the new showroom, polishing a sapphire-back skeleton dial, the gears gleaming beneath the glass. I thought about how far I'd come, not just in distance from Clara, but from who I was when this all began. I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was building again. I stepped outside, watching dusk settle over the street. A couple walked by, laughing about something small. The air smelled like lilac and fresh soil. For the first time in a long while, I didn't think of betrayal. I thought of tomorrow, of what I might make next, of the quiet joy that comes from living without lies. The past broke me, but I rebuilt stronger. I locked up the shop and walked to my truck. The engine turned over smooth and low. I turned onto the road, windows down, wind brushing past my face. Driving home, I felt at peace. The past was gone, and I was free.